Everyone, please find your seats. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining. We are expecting President Zelensky in a moment, but I want to thank you for joining us at the World Bank Group headquarters in Washington, D.C. After 8 months of war, the Ukrainian people and their leaders remain determined and resilient. I am horrified by Russia's actions, the loss of lives and livelihoods, and the economic turmoil the war has unleashed. Ukraine's needs for recovery and reconstruction are massive, and we've been discussing that today. We work closely as an international group to prepare for the reconstruction efforts. I want to turn to my close colleague, Kristalina Georgieva. And then maybe directly to...
So I have the privilege to pass the floor to President Zelensky. He's already with us. President Zelensky, we are all ears. We look forward to hearing from you.
Дуже дякую, Кристаліна, дуже дякую за можливість. Дякую, пане Мальпасе. Радий вас бачити всіх, шановні пані і панове, шановні присутні, дорогі друзі. Вдячний за увагу до України. Цими днями наша держава стала мішенню чергової зухвалої терористичної атаки Росії. Більше сотні російських крилатих ракет і півсотні ударних дронів менш ніж за 2 доби проти нашої цивільної інфраструктури, об'єктів енергетики. І це лише одна атака, що цілеспрямовано зачепила або пошкодила близько третини української енергетики. Але повномасштабна війна проти нашої держави триває вже більше 230 днів. І людина, що привласнила собі
The full-scale war against our state has been lasting for more than 230 days, and the man who appropriated Russia is not going to stop it. He will spend tens and tens of $billions more and make new strikes until we force Russia to peace with him or without him. Our joint collaboration is bringing this moment, the victory of Ukraine. And the more assistance Ukraine gets now, the sooner will come an end to the Russian war. And the sooner, the more reliably we will guarantee that such a cruel war will not spread into other countries. I am very thankful to you for understanding this. Thank you for all the support you have provided. I'm thankful to the United States of America, to President Biden and the US Congress for their special support. $8.5 billion were directed to fulfill our social obligations, such as paying salaries, pensions, and support of Ukraine's social sphere. I'm thankful to World Bank and IMF for their institutional leadership in implementing Ukraine support programs. I'm thankful to European Union and all our partners who joined helping to stabilize Ukraine's financial condition. You all can see that Ukraine is strong enough to stand through in this war, but we need to remain consistent in supporting our country and develop existing lines of help. Every specific step in helping Ukraine is a real reduction of Russian aggression, and I would like to propose to you 3 such steps. First, I believe it would be useful if we created a coordination format for financial support of Ukraine, similar to what was created in Ramstein for defense support. Ms. Kristalina Georgieva and I discussed the importance of coordinating donors. It would be good to create a permanent working group that would provide financial support for Ukraine and work promptly at different levels, at the level of international donors and specific countries that take part in assistance. Number 2, reliable making up for the deficit of people and providing for the basic needs of people. We can see that Russian terroristic attacks can be intensified, so we need to intensify our collaboration for assistance in a symmetric way to rebuild what was destroyed and to guarantee the financial stability of our state. You know the data from this year. Russian terror has caused Ukraine's economy reduction by more than 1/3. Likewise, real incomes of our people are reduced by 1/3. Thousands of businesses and infrastructural objects were destroyed and millions of people became displaced. At this time, we have 2 key financial needs of the country. That's $38 billion to make up for the deficit of our budget for next year. That includes salaries of doctors and teachers, social payments and pensions. That's guarantees of Ukrainian people's survival. And other $17 billion that were verified by the World Bank and needed to rebuild the critical infrastructure in the RDNA framework. Those are schools, hospitals, critical transport and energy infrastructure, also damaged housing. In fact, all that became Russia's priority targets for their strikes. We need also targeted credits in the amount of $2 billion to rebuild the electric energy infrastructure after the destruction and to expand our export to Europe. Also, taking into account the crisis situation created by Russia all across the continent, we need credit limits to purchase gas and coal for the future heating season. The scope of this year's support should be not less than $5 billion. Perhaps we will not have to use those limits, but they need to be made in order to guarantee stability. In this concept of counteraction against deficit and guaranteeing stability, critically important is the new program of collaboration with the IMF. The realistic scope up to $20 billion. This program needs to finally be approved as the main source of making up for the deficit. The third step I would like to support is specific instruments to support investment for Ukraine in order to stimulate the economy and so that business would start invest in Ukraine now. We need a mechanism to ensure military risks for new investment projects. I hope that we can launch this mechanism together with the World Bank. One other element of protecting economic activity could be opening limits for export-import agencies of partner countries to supply equipment to Ukraine. This is something that can strengthen your companies right away in collaboration with us. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time when the terrorist state is trying to intimidate us even more, we have to respond to the Russian terror with a stronger and even more meaningful collaboration. This is the true defense, our joint defense of our shared democracy, our mode of life. Terror has to lose. Ukraine has to win. And that's absolutely real with your support. Once again, thank you all those who help us. Glory to Ukraine.
President Zelensky. We are joined here at World Bank by ministers, by other international organizations, and it's a coordinated effort by the group to provide support and find the pathways that you were describing in your comments. I want to turn now. We have Prime Minister Shmyhal. Yes. I know Secretary Yellen, as you mentioned, President Zelensky, the United States has been a very strong factor within the flows. And World Bank has been able to disperse $8.5 billion of U.S. money plus other nations to reach the immediate needs of Ukraine during this crisis. And we've had discussions already this morning of additional steps that can be taken over the coming weeks and months. Let me turn to Kristalina and then to Prime Minister Shmyhal. Yeah. Do we have Prime Minister?
Do we have the, Prime Minister? Are you on the line? Did we? President Zelensky, we are.
Here he is.
Here he is. Good to see you.
Monday,
welcome to this
Russia
meeting.
Carried out one of the most
Prime Minister, go ahead.
Dear David, dear Kristalina, dear ministers, ladies and gentlemen, this Monday Russia carried out one of the most massive missile strikes on our cities since the beginning of the invasion of Ukraine. As President Zelensky said, more than hundreds of rockets and kamikaze drones damaged energy infrastructure, parks, children playgrounds, and public transport stops. 25 killed, 134 wounded. The purpose of this terrorist act is the desire to put Ukraine on the knees. In this regard, our response must be fast, tough, and decisive. More sanctions against Russia and more assistance to Ukraine. This is how the world must respond to every Russian terrorist attack. Since the Second World War, no country in Europe has suffered such huge losses and destructions that Ukraine suffers today. Millions have left Ukraine. Of this, more than 40% are people of working age, and 2/3 are the people with higher education. Ukraine is losing the most valuable thing, human capital. The recent World Bank report identifies the need of $350 billion for the recovery of Ukraine, almost twice as much as the GDP of our state last year. And these are only losses in the first 3 months of the war. The final amount of losses will be known only after the end of the war. But it is already clear that recovery is impossible without the active participation of international partners. We also won't be able to finance the key expenditures from our budget. We're talking about the payment of pensions, assistance to internally displaced persons, the salaries of doctors and teachers. This is a basic and most important thing that helps people survive. Over the last 7 months of the war, you, your international partners and allies have provided us with about $20 billion in the different instruments. This is more than a third of all budget revenues. Ukraine is grateful for this reliable partnership and solidarity. We are grateful to everyone who continues to stand alongside Ukraine in our battle for a global freedom. Two key topics that I wanted to address to you today are the request for further intensive financial assistance to Ukraine, as well as the work on further sanctions against Russia. Sanctions pressure on Russia needs to be tightened. I want to welcome the 8th package of EU sanctions. It should create a tangible blow to the economy of our enemy. But this is not enough. Russia pays a too low price for its crimes. According to the World Bank forecasts, its economy will shrink by 4.5% this year, while Ukraine's economy will fall by 35% this year alone. 4.5 and 35 are the disproportional scale. 2023 will be just as extremely difficult for us in terms of stability of our economy and finances. Ukraine will continue to need strong financial assistance from partner countries and international financial institutions. We are talking about the amount of more than $55 billion for 2023. As President said, this covers the state budget deficit at the level of $3.5 billion per month, and another $17 billion for rapid reconstruction projects. Of course, we are doing everything to increase the sustainability of our own economy, collect more taxes, and be more self-sufficient in terms of financing overspending. Our government has submitted a budget to the Parliament for 2023, where we are further optimizing our expenditures. Thanks to currency devaluation and nominal freezing of social benefits, we have reduced the fiscal gap by about 30%. In the state budget for 2023, we are significantly reducing expenditures on the state apparatus. For example, expenditures on the Ministry of Economy are reduced by 86%, on the Ministry of Youth and Sport by 55%, on the Ministry of Culture by 47%, clearly defining the priorities of budget financing. First of all, it is defense, 45% of all expenditures, social payments, 16%, medicine and education, 13%, and 13% for debt servicing. And these are the costs that we cannot reduce. Our common task is to bring economic and financial cooperation between Ukraine and our partners to a fundamentally new level. I would also like to use the opportunity and call on the present ministers to contribute to the implementation of Ukraine's idea of confiscation of frozen Russian assets. These are hundreds of billions of dollars that should rightly go to rebuild what Russian troops have destroyed. Simply returning these funds to the aggressor will mean that this is simply no punishment for destruction, murder, and terror in the modern world. Therefore, we also hope for your support in this matter. Thank you again for your help and believe that our fruitful cooperation with you will continue next year. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your support. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you, Prime Minister Kristalina Georgieva, Managing Director of the IMF.
Thank you, David. President Zelensky, Prime Minister Shmyhal, and Minister Marchenko, all who are here around this table. It is a huge responsibility for us to respond to what we have heard. We are gathering this week to assess the outlook for the world economy, which has darkened dramatically because of Russia's senseless war against Ukraine. And of course, the most dramatic consequences are for people in Ukraine. And yet what we saw is a proud nation standing up to an aggressor with a remarkable determination. Thank you for that. I want to make 3 points. First, when the war started in February, it was so hard to envisage how the economy is going to withstand it and how policies would be in place to deal with the consequences of war. And what we are seeing is a remarkable demonstration that these policies are in place and that the economic team and the people in Ukraine are handling with dignity and professionalism what is thrown at them. We have, both the World Bank and the IMF, we have been working very closely with the Ukrainian authorities, and what we see is a recovery of economic activities in a significant part of the country, in place social policies that not only provide for the population, but bring the confidence of people in Ukraine, and a very responsible attitude towards how money is being used. I want to recognize everybody who has contributed to Ukraine, the US in particular, because not only the amounts are significant, but they are provided as grants, and grants is what a country in a situation like this most needed. And I am sure that after today we will come up even stronger in that determination we have to demonstrate. Let me move to my second point, which is no doubt in front of us is going to be a difficult 2023. Hopefully the war would end sooner rather than later. But from what we are seeing, we have to be there for the Ukrainian people. This group has mobilized $35 billion, most already delivered, some in a process to be delivered. I am, on behalf of my colleagues, I want to say we at the IMF, we are doing our part. We have contributed $2.7 billion of IMF lending, and we have administered on behalf of Canada, Germany, and the Netherlands another $2.2 billion. What we need to look into is how to ensure sustainability of the economy, and that would require a significant effort. Our team is going to be with the Ukrainian team immediately after the annual meetings to determine the macroeconomic framework and also what that would mean in terms of budgetary implications. Our preliminary estimate is that somewhere between $3 and $4 billion are necessary on a monthly basis. And the numbers would be determined by three factors. One, what is the cost of social services? Depends on the war and depends on migration. Two, what is the cost of reconstruction of vital infrastructure? It would depend on the war, and it also would depend on our prioritization. And three, what are the energy needs of the country? How much needs to be imported to provide for people in Ukraine? And it would depend on whether, in addition to, of course, the horrors of the war. My third point is to respond to President Zelensky. He called on us to bring together an economic forum for Ukraine that meets on a regular basis, and it is where we look at the macro framework, we look at the financing gap, and look at how we are closing this gap. And President Zelensky, yes, we do it. We will be assembling the forum as soon as possible. We now have a new platform to engage, which is the program with monitoring from the board. It is the pathway to a full-fledged program you called for. And we are moving with you in the direction of a strong Ukraine. Since I'm the managing director of the IMF, I'm not supposed to take positions with countries. I'm just going to quote you and President Zelensky. That's not my words, these are your words. Slava Ukraini.
Turning to Secretary Yellen.
I thank President Zelensky and Prime Minister Shmyhal for addressing this group. The American people stand resolutely with Ukraine in the face of Russia's brutal and illegal war, especially after Monday's barbaric strikes on non-military targets throughout Ukraine. In our meeting yesterday, I offered my condolences to Minister Marchenko for the lives lost, and once again the world has seen the true nature of Putin's war. In response to Russia's war of choice, our historic sanctions coalition is restricting Russia's access to technology and equipment it needs to supply its military. And with our price cap on Russian oil, we're targeting Russia's key source of revenue while stabilizing global energy markets. The Ukrainian military has mounted an heroic defense against Russia's brutal attacks on the battlefield. Ukraine's economic and finance officials have also done their part by continuing to provide critical services to the people of Ukraine and keeping Ukraine's government operational under extraordinary circumstances. And now, donors need to keep stepping up. The United States recently reaffirmed our commitment to Ukraine through congressional approval of another $4.5 billion in grant assistance, which we will begin to disperse in the coming weeks, and that's in addition to the $8.5 billion in grants already dispersed. I would like to thank the World Bank for facilitating these disbursements. We welcome the efforts of all donors to meet Ukraine's needs. However, the scale, predictability, and grant component of disbursements must improve. We also appreciate the World Bank and European Bank for Reconstruction and Development support for Ukraine, which have included helping donors like us channel resources to Ukraine, and we welcome the IMF's disbursement in new emergency financing and laying the groundwork for a full-fledged program early next year. As Russia's shameful actions continue, we must continue our joint efforts and begin planning for Ukraine's needs in 2023. To this point, we welcome the World Bank's rapid damage and needs assessment and the upcoming IMF validation of Ukraine's budget to help anchor donor coordination. Meeting Ukraine's needs will require a unified and coordinated effort, but together, the G7, the international financial institutions, and all of Ukraine's partners can help Ukraine win this war and rebuild to become the prosperous and secure democracy that the Ukrainian people have fought so hard for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I want to take a moment to take note of the contributions from all countries that have aided Ukraine. Also, from the strength of the support around this big table. I don't know if that can be seen by everyone. We're at the point where I want to thank the global audience for watching this important event. This now concludes the public portion of our program, and we will now say goodbye to those of you who have joined online and go to a closed session for discussion of these topics. Thank you all. Group Axel von Trotzenberg is going to chair, and we look forward to working with everyone. And I really want to take note of all of the efforts that are around this table on this important task. Thank you.